far enough to get shot, but that wasn't a very good idea, so I wouldn't recommend that. I think one of the troubles of being a foreign correspondent, one of the reasons I stopped wanting to do it, is that it's very difficult when you have the effect for you having to trade your own safety against a story. If you're in the military, you might not like to be in a war zone, but the only way out once you're there is to sort of desert and be court-martialed. When you're a journalist, you're kind of in a way like an accidental tourist. You can go down such and such a road, and maybe there'll be a great story at the end. On the other hand, you might get killed, and so trying to balance those two things off against each other is what, to me, was the most stressful thing about the job. So I didn't want to go so far in getting a story that I got shot, but I did. And the reason I did was because I had no idea I was going to get shot. So that is what becomes stressful over time. And actually, in some ways, after you've been shot, it's easier because you think, yeah, I'm invincible now, I got shot and survived. On the other hand, sort of carrying off the notion that it's never going to happen to you becomes more difficult once you actually have a hole in your leg. It's a question of priorities. I've always taken the view that journalism is not the most important thing to me in my life, nor is writing, nor is anything really apart from my family. So they're the only thing that really matters. Everything else is of interest, but not of anything like as significant. You didn't really want to sort of be trying to savage them. That most people would have considered that monstrously inappropriate. On the other hand, you're very well aware that if you don't ask them difficult questions, then people may have a go at you for that too. So it was actually quite a difficult balancing act to strike. But what I said to them and what I sort of said privately to myself was that people were just curious about them. Plenty of people I know who were Republicans who were kind of still curious about them, about her in particular. She's been on the front pages for so long, and yet no one had ever heard her speak. So it was kind of fascinating to just hear what she sounded like. I decided that I really wanted to have a ringside seat in the events of my own lifetime, and I wouldn't say I'm not picky, but there are all kinds of interesting things happening on all kinds of spheres. There are interesting things happening in Libya, there are interesting things happening in domestic politics, there are interesting things happening in the US. I think the point is to have a curious mind, and it's a good thing to keep moving over time, otherwise you do get a bit, or can get a bit bored. So I've done a lot of different specialisms in my career, and that's what's been so attractive about it. I suppose the first thing, the most obvious one, it's very difficult to get a job, it's very difficult to get on, but don't be dispirited by that. If you work in the heart of any organisation, what you see around you is some very, very talented people, some extremely talented people, but there's not a kind of limitless supply of talent, there's not a limitless supply of people who are bright and ambitious and want to get there. So, don't give up, I think, would be the first thing I would say. And the second thing I would say is try to show some integrity in everything that you do. I mean, you meet some people who, say they're hacks before they're anything else and would sell their own grandmother for a story. Well, I think that's a sort of really pathetic approach and generally leads to nowhere very much. So